Imagine standing before a brick wall, fists clenched, anger coursing through your veins. You pull back your arm and drive your knuckles into that unyielding surface with everything you have. What happens? The wall stands exactly as it was, indifferent to your pain, while your hand throbs with the consequences of your resistance. Now picture something entirely different. Water, flowing toward that same wall. It does not argue with the barrier. It does not announce its intentions or demand passage. It simply flows around the obstacle, beneath it, over it, finding every crack and crevice, and in time, that persistent flow erodes the very foundation of what once seemed immovable. The punch represents resistance, the way most of us have been taught to face our problems, with force, with struggle, with the grinding determination to break through by sheer will. The water represents non-resistance, and it is the ancient secret that Florence Scovel Shinn discovered and taught to those wise enough to listen. She understood what warriors and philosophers have known across millennia, that fighting your problems is not just ineffective, it is the slowest possible way to solve them. To win instantly, to dissolve obstacles as if they were never there, you must become like water. You have been trained since childhood to fight, haven't you? Every message you received as a young man emphasized the virtue of struggle, the nobility of pushing through pain, the masculine imperative to never back down from a challenge. Society celebrates the fighter, the one who meets every obstacle with clenched fists and gritted teeth, who views surrender as weakness and accommodation as cowardice. But Florence Scovel Shinn reveals a truth so counterintuitive that it sounds like madness to the untrained ear. What you resist persists. Think carefully about that statement, because it contains the key to every locked door you face. When you pour your energy into hating an obstacle, when you spend your precious mental and emotional resources fighting against what you do not want, you are not weakening that obstacle. You are feeding it. Every ounce of anger, every moment of fear, every passionate argument against the thing you oppose adds another layer of concrete to that wall you are trying to demolish. The resistance you offer becomes the electricity that powers the very thing you are trying to eliminate. The tactic of non-resistance that Shinn teaches is not surrender, not in the way you fear. It is not waving a white flag or accepting defeat. It is something far more strategic and infinitely more powerful. It is starvation. You starve the problem of the one resource it needs to survive in your reality, your attention, your emotional engagement, your fierce opposition that paradoxically validates its existence. In the next minutes of this journey together, we are going to explore what Shinn called the non-resistance tactic. And I promise you this, if you truly understand and implement what you're about to learn, you will look back on this moment as a turning point. We will discover the precise mechanism by which you can dissolve financial blocks that have plagued you for years, not by attacking them, but by withdrawing the fuel they need to exist in your experience. We will examine how legal battles that seem destined to drain your resources and peace of mind can simply evaporate when you apply this ancient principle correctly. We will learn how difficult people, those individuals who seem to exist solely to frustrate your progress, lose their power over you the instant you stop giving them the resistance they feed upon. This is not theory, not wishful thinking, not spiritual platitudes meant to make you feel better while nothing changes. This is a tactical manual for dissolving obstacles, and the results when you apply these principles with precision are nothing short of miraculous. The shortcut you have been searching for is not about working harder or pushing more forcefully. It is about understanding that the secret door opens when you stop trying to break it down. Let us begin with a fundamental principle of reality that most people never grasp. You cannot simply stop thinking about a problem. The human mind, like nature itself, abhors a vacuum. If you have ever tried to stop worrying about something through sheer willpower, you know exactly what I am describing. You tell yourself, I will not think about the debt. And what happens? The debt becomes the only thing you can think about. You command your mind, stop being afraid, and the fear grows larger. This is where Florence Scovel Shinn's Law of Substitution becomes not just helpful, but essential for anyone seeking to transform their reality. The principle is deceptively simple, but profoundly powerful. You do not remove a thought by fighting it. you replace it. You substitute the unwanted mental pattern with its opposite, and you do so with such intensity and focus that the original pattern has nowhere to exist. When fear knocks at the door of your consciousness, demanding entry and threatening chaos, you do not argue with fear. You do not wrestle with it. You send faith to answer. Faith and fear cannot occupy the same space in your mind simultaneously. They are mutually exclusive frequencies. If you are worrying about debt, consumed by the seeming reality of lack and the pressure of unpaid obligations, you do not fight the debt directly. Fighting debt means thinking about debt, resenting debt, being in constant mental and emotional contact with debt. Instead, you focus intensely on supply. You contemplate the infinite nature of abundance. You look at the solution with such concentrated attention that the problem blurs out of focus, like trying to see something clearly while staring at something else. This is not positive thinking in the shallow sense that phrase has acquired. This is strategic redirection of mental energy based on the understanding that your consciousness is a spotlight, and whatever you illuminate with that spotlight becomes real in your experience. The law of substitution operates on a principle that seems almost too elegant to be true, yet its effectiveness has been proven in the lives of countless individuals who learn to apply it. Consider how a radio works. At any given moment, thousands of frequencies are passing through the space where you sit, but you hear only the station to which your radio is tuned. All the other stations are there, broadcasting their content, but they are invisible and inaudible to you because your receiver is not calibrated to their frequency. Your consciousness operates on the same principle. Right now, in this present moment, both the frequency of prosperity and the frequency of lack exist as possibilities. Both the reality where your problem is unsolvable and the reality where it has already been resolved are broadcasting simultaneously. The question is not whether these realities exist. They do. The question is which frequency you are tuned to, which station your consciousness is receiving. When you practice substitution, you are not creating something new or convincing the universe to change its mind about you. You are changing the dial. You are consciously choosing which broadcast you will receive, which reality you will experience. If you find yourself on the frequency of lack, you do not fight lack by thinking about how terrible lack is. You do not overcome lack by cataloging all the ways in which you are experiencing shortage. You change the station by focusing completely on the frequency of abundance until that is the only signal your consciousness can receive. Here is what makes this principle so powerful and why it is central to Shinn's teaching. Most people spend their entire lives trying to eliminate what they do not want, while accidentally concentrating all their energy on it. They want to eliminate debt, so they think about debt constantly, how much they owe, how unfair it is, how stressed it makes them feel. They want to eliminate conflict, so they replay arguments in their minds, plan their next defensive move, rehearse what they will say to prove they are right. They want to eliminate illness, so they research symptoms, worry about outcomes, and identify completely with the sick body. In every case, the very act of fighting against the unwanted condition requires them to focus on it, think about it, give it their attention and emotional energy. And because attention is creative, because whatever you focus upon with emotion tends to manifest in your experience, they perpetuate the exact condition they are trying to eliminate. The law of substitution breaks this destructive cycle. It gives you a practical method for withdrawing your attention from what you do not want, while simultaneously feeding what you do want. When you substitute the thought of supply for the thought of debt, you are not pretending the debt does not exist. You are choosing where to direct your creative power. The debt may still appear on paper, but you have stopped nourishing it with fear. You have stopped making it real in the only place that matters, your consciousness. Let us go deeper into the mechanics of this substitution process, because understanding the how will give you the power to apply it effectively. When a thought of lack or limitation enters your mind, and it will because you are surrounded by a world that constantly broadcasts such frequencies, you have approximately 3 seconds before that thought begins to take root in your emotional body. In those 3 seconds, you have a choice. You can engage with the thought, argue with it, feel the fear or anger it provokes, and thus give it the emotional charge it needs to manifest in your external reality. Or you can substitute it. The moment you notice the thought of debt, you immediately redirect your attention to a thought of abundance. Not as a desperate escape, not with the energy of, "I must not think about debt," but with calm, deliberate authority. I now focus on the infinite supply that is my divine right. The moment you notice fear about an outcome, you substitute it with a declaration of faith. I trust the law that governs all outcomes. Notice that substitution is not argument. You're not debating with the negative thought, listing reasons why it might not be true. Debate keeps you engaged with the unwanted frequency. Substitution is a complete pivot, a clean break, a decisive change of channel. You're not fighting the old station. You are simply choosing to listen to a different one. The power of substitution multiplies when you understand that what you substitute must be specific and emotionally compelling. It is not enough to vaguely think positive thoughts when fear arises. Vague positivity has no power because it carries no emotional weight. If you are worried about a specific debt, say $10,000 owed, substituting with a generic "things will get better" accomplishes nothing. You must substitute with something specific that carries emotional resonance for you. You might focus on the image of holding a check for $15,000, feeling the texture of the paper, seeing your name written across it, experiencing the relief and joy of having more than enough. You might contemplate a specific statement of abundance that Shinn herself taught. Infinite Spirit, open the way for the divine design of my life to manifest. Let the genius within me now be released. Let me see clearly the perfect plan. The specificity and the emotional engagement are what give the substituted thought the power to replace the fear-based thought. This is why Shinn emphasized the use of specific affirmations and mental images. They are not just pretty words or wishful visualizations. They are precision tools for redirecting consciousness from the frequency of lack to the frequency of abundance, from the channel of fear to the channel of faith. Consider what happens in your body when you successfully practice substitution. Fear, worry, and resistance create a specific physiological state. Muscles tense, breath becomes shallow, heart rate increases, stress hormones flood your system. This physical state then reinforces the mental state, creating a feedback loop that keeps you locked in the frequency of fear. But when you substitute the fear thought with a faith thought, something remarkable happens in your physiology. Your breath deepens, your shoulders relax, your heart rate stabilizes. The chemical composition of your blood begins to change as stress hormones are replaced by hormones associated with calm and confidence. This physical shift is not just a pleasant side effect. It is part of the mechanism by which substitution works. You cannot be in a state of faith and a state of fear simultaneously, not just mentally, but physically. When you change your mental focus, your body follows. And when your body changes, it broadcasts a different signal into the quantum field of possibilities that surrounds you. You become a different vibrational being, and the law of attraction, which Shinn understood deeply, responds to your new frequency by bringing you experiences that match it. The debt that seemed so solid and immovable exists at a certain frequency. When you rise to a different frequency through substitution, you literally become incompatible with that problem. It cannot exist in the same reality you now occupy. The law of substitution also explains why trying to get rid of negative thoughts is counterproductive. The language itself, get rid of, eliminate, and destroy, keeps you in relationship with the unwanted thought. You are still thinking about it, just with a negative intention attached. It is like trying to get rid of darkness by fighting it, by swinging your fists at the shadows. The only way to eliminate darkness is to turn on the light. You do not fight the darkness. You introduce its opposite, and the darkness vanishes not because you defeated it, but because it cannot exist where light is present. This is precisely how substitution works with thoughts. The fearful thought is the darkness. The faith-based thought is the light. When you turn on the light, when you focus deliberately and with emotion on the substitute thought, the fearful thought does not need to be fought or destroyed. It simply ceases to exist because there is no space for it. This is effortless, in the truest sense. You are not straining to make something happen. You are allowing the natural law of mental physics to operate. Two thoughts cannot occupy the same mental space at the same time, so you choose which thought will occupy that space. Now let us address the challenge that stops most people from applying this principle effectively. Impatience. You substitute a fearful thought with a faith thought once, maybe twice. And when the fear returns, as it will, because you are changing a deeply ingrained pattern, you conclude that substitution does not work. This is where you must understand the nature of mental conditioning. If you have been thinking fearful thoughts about money for 20 years, that neural pathway in your brain is a superhighway, wide and well-traveled. The faith-based thought is a footpath through the forest, barely visible. Each time you practice substitution, you are making the footpath a little wider, while allowing the superhighway to fall into disuse. It is not that substitution fails, it is that you stop practicing it before the new pathway becomes dominant. Shinn understood this, which is why she emphasized persistence. She did not tell people to substitute once and expect miracles, though sometimes miracles do occur instantly. She taught them to substitute consistently, every single time the unwanted thought appeared, until the substitution became automatic, until the new thought pattern became more familiar than the old one. This is not a weekend experiment. This is a fundamental restructuring of your consciousness, and like any construction project, it requires sustained effort until the new structure is solid. Let me give you a practical example that will make this concrete. Imagine you are facing a legal battle, a lawsuit that threatens your finances and your peace of mind. The conventional approach is to think about the lawsuit constantly, what you will say in court, how unfair the accusations are, how much money you might lose, what will happen if you lose. Every thought about the lawsuit is a thought on the frequency of conflict and lack. Now apply the law of substitution. Each time the lawsuit enters your mind, you do not fight the thought. You do not tell yourself, I should not think about this. Here you substitute. The divine law of justice governs this situation. The truth is revealed and harmony is restored. You might visualize the scene of resolution, the feeling of freedom when it is over, the relief and joy of a perfect outcome. You do this not once, but every time. The thought of the lawsuit arises 100 times a day at first. You substitute 100 times a day. What you are doing, neurologically and energetically, is training your consciousness to default to the frequency of resolution rather than the frequency of conflict. And here is what Shinn discovered through decades of teaching this principle. When you successfully maintain the substituted frequency, the external situation must change to match it. The lawsuit is dropped, or resolved in your favor, or transforms into something completely different. Not because you manipulated reality through force, but because you changed the frequency you were broadcasting, and the law of correspondence brought you a reality that matched your new frequency. The law of substitution is the foundation of every other principle Shinn taught. It is the mechanism by which you practice non-resistance, because you cannot resist what you are not thinking about. It is the method by which you rewrite your subconscious patterns, because the subconscious accepts whatever thought you consistently focus upon. It is the tool by which you dissolve obstacles, because obstacles exist in consciousness before they exist in form. And when you change your consciousness through substitution, the obstacle in form must dissolve. This is not mysticism. This is not asking you to deny reality or pretend problems do not exist. This is a precise scientific understanding of how consciousness creates experience. You are not changing out there, you are changing in here, and as you change in here, out there rearranges itself to match. The law of substitution is your primary tool for changing in here. Master this, and you have mastered the key that unlocks every door. Now that you understand the law of substitution, we must examine the mechanism that makes it work, what Shinn called spiritual judo. If you have ever studied martial arts, particularly Judo or Aikido, you know that these disciplines are built on a revolutionary premise. You do not defeat a stronger opponent by matching their force. You defeat them by using their force against them, by redirecting the energy of their attack so that they defeat themselves. When your opponent charges at you with tremendous force, a lesser martial artist would meet that charge head-on, would try to stop the momentum through greater strength. But the master of judo does something that appears almost magical to the untrained eye. At the last moment, when the attack is fully committed, the master steps aside. He pivots. The attacker's own momentum, having nothing to push against, causes him to stumble, to fall, to be defeated by the very energy he unleashed. This is exactly how non-resistance works in the spiritual realm, and Shinn understood this principle with crystal clarity. When a problem attacks your peace, when a difficult situation charges at you demanding your fear and your struggle, the instinct of most people is to meet that attack directly. They push back, they worry, they strategize desperately, they pour energy into resistance. But by resisting, by pushing back, they give the problem something solid to push against. They validate its reality. They confirm its power. They become locked in a wrestling match with an opponent who grows stronger the harder they fight. Spiritual judo requires a completely different response, one that feels counterintuitive until you experience its power. When the problem attacks, you do not block. You pivot. You step aside mentally and emotionally, refusing to engage on the frequency of fear and conflict. By refusing to be angry about the problem, by refusing to be afraid of the outcome, by refusing to give the situation the emotional resistance it needs to maintain its grip on your reality, you unbalance the entire structure. The problem, like the charging opponent in judo, has nowhere to land its force. It swings through empty space. And here is the miraculous part that Shinn taught. When a problem in your life has nothing to push against, when you withdraw your resistance completely, it falls under its own weight. It collapses, not because you defeated it, but because you refuse to be its opponent. This is not weakness. This is supreme strength. It takes far more power to stand calmly in the face of an attack and refuse to engage than it does to lash out in reaction. The reactive response is easy, automatic, driven by fear. The non-resistant response requires conscious mastery, absolute faith in the law, and the willingness to let the universe handle what you cannot control. Let us examine what actually happens when you practice spiritual judo in a specific situation. Imagine someone sends you an angry email, full of accusations and demands threatening consequences if you do not comply. The conventional response is immediate. Your body tenses, anger rises. You begin composing a defensive response in your mind even before you finish reading their message. You are engaged. You are in the fight. Your consciousness is now on the same frequency as their attack. Conflict, defensiveness, fear of consequences. In this state, you have become part of the problem. You are feeding the conflict with your resistance, making it real, giving it power. Now watch what happens when you apply spiritual judo. You read the message. You feel the initial surge of reaction. That is natural, that is human. But instead of engaging, you pivot. You close the message, you take a breath. You consciously refuse to meet attack with attack. You might say to yourself or out loud, I release this situation to the divine law of harmony. Truth is revealed and peace is restored. Notice what you have done. You have stepped aside. The attacker's energy, having nothing to push against from you, now has nowhere to go. And something remarkable happens, something Shinn observed countless times. When you withdraw your resistance, the other person often loses their momentum. They send no follow-up attack, or they apologize, or the situation resolves itself through means you never anticipated. Why? Because conflict requires two participants. When one party refuses to engage on the frequency of conflict, the conflict cannot sustain itself. The logic of spiritual judo operates on a principle that seems paradoxical until you grasp it fully. The problem is not the problem. Your reaction to the problem is the problem. The external situation, whatever it may be, debt, illness, conflict, lack, is simply a condition, neutral in itself. It becomes a problem only when you resist it, only when you pour emotional energy into fighting it, fearing it, hating it. That emotional resistance is what gives the condition its power over your life. It is what keeps the condition locked in place, unchanging, solid, immovable. When you remove the resistance, you remove the power source. The condition, deprived of the energy of your opposition, begins to lose its solidity. It becomes fluid, changeable, transformable. This is not metaphor. This is describing an actual mechanism by which consciousness interacts with form. The physical universe is not as solid as it appears. Quantum physics has proven what mystics have known for millennia. At the deepest level, everything is energy, frequency, vibration. What appears solid, your debt, your conflict, your limitation, is actually a pattern of energy held in place by consciousness. When you change the consciousness that is holding it in place, the pattern must change. Resistance holds the pattern rigid. Non-resistance allows it to dissolve and reform. Consider the physics of water again, because nature is always teaching us the laws of spirit. When water encounters a rock in its path, it does not argue with the rock. It does not hate the rock or fear the rock or push against the rock with force. It simply flows. And in flowing, in remaining true to its nature without resistance, the water accomplishes what force could never achieve. It shapes the rock, wears it down, ultimately transforms the landscape. The rock, for all its apparent solidity and strength, is no match for the persistent, non-resistant flow of water. You are meant to be like water in the face of your obstacles. Not passive. Water is not passive. It is constantly moving, constantly finding new routes, constantly flowing toward its destination, but non-resistant. The obstacle exists. You do not deny its presence, but you do not waste your energy fighting it either. You flow around it, and in that flowing you discover paths you never knew existed. Opportunities appear that were invisible when you were locked in resistance. Solutions emerge that could not emerge while you were in fight mode. This is spiritual judo, the art of winning without fighting, of overcoming without force, of dissolving obstacles by refusing to validate their power. Shinn taught that when you successfully practice non-resistance, you tap into a power far greater than your personal will. Your personal will, your ego, your human effort, these are limited. They can only push so hard, strategize so far, control so much. But when you step aside, when you pivot out of the way through non-resistance, you allow the infinite intelligence that governs the universe to work on your behalf. This intelligence knows paths you do not know. It sees solutions you cannot see. It can orchestrate circumstances and events in ways that would be impossible for your limited human perspective to imagine. But it cannot work through you while you are locked in resistance, because resistance is the assertion of your personal will against the flow of divine will. When you resist, you are essentially saying, "I know better than the universe how this should be handled. I will fight my way through this using my limited knowledge and my finite strength." When you practice non-resistance, you are saying something entirely different. I acknowledge this situation, but I do not fight it. I trust that the law is working to resolve it in ways I cannot see. I step aside and let the infinite handle what I cannot. This is not abdication of responsibility. This is the recognition that some things are beyond your control, and that trying to control them through resistance only exhausts you while accomplishing nothing. The practice of spiritual judo also protects your energy, and this is crucial for anyone who wants to move through life with power and effectiveness. Every moment you spend in resistance, worrying, fighting, struggling, defending, is energy you are not spending on creation, on building your vision, on moving toward your goals. Resistance is a massive energy drain. It keeps you reactive instead of proactive, defensive instead of offensive in the strategic sense. When you learn to pivot, to step aside, to refuse engagement with every battle that presents itself, you conserve your energy for what truly matters. Not every fight is your fight. Not every conflict requires your participation. Not every problem demands your personal intervention. Shinn taught discernment. Know when to act and when to stand still, when to speak and when to remain silent, when to engage and when to pivot. The master of spiritual judo does not engage randomly or reactively. He chooses his battles with wisdom, and more often than not, he chooses non-resistance because he understands that most battles resolve themselves when you withdraw the fuel of your emotional engagement. Here is a truth that will transform your experience if you truly absorb it. Most of the things you have spent your life resisting, fighting, and worrying about have either never happened or have resolved themselves in ways you could not have predicted. Look back over your life. How many nights did you spend awake, consumed with anxiety about a situation that seemed catastrophic at the time? And how many of those situations actually turned out as badly as you feared? How many of them resolved in unexpected ways, or turned out to be blessings in disguise, or simply faded into irrelevance as time passed? If you are honest, you will realize that you have wasted immeasurable energy resisting things that never materialized, or that resolved despite your resistance, not because of it. The practice of spiritual judo, the commitment to non-resistance, is the decision to stop wasting energy in that way. It is the mature recognition that resistance has never served you, that fighting has never brought you peace, that struggling has never made you stronger. What has served you in those rare moments when you practiced it was trust, was faith, was the willingness to step aside and let the law work. Shinn emphasized that non-resistance is not the same as non-action. This is a crucial distinction that confuses many people. When you practice spiritual judo, you are not sitting passively, doing nothing, accepting whatever happens with limp resignation. You are still taking action, but your action comes from a different place. Instead of acting from fear, from the desperate need to control, from the belief that you must fight every battle personally, you act from inspiration, from inner guidance, from the calm knowing of what is truly yours to do. Some situations require your physical action. You still show up for the court hearing. You still have the difficult conversation. You still do the work that is in front of you. But you do it without resistance, without the inner turmoil that usually accompanies such actions. You do what is required with a calm, detached efficiency, trusting that as you do your part, the universe is doing its part, working behind the scenes in ways you cannot see. This is the power of aligned action versus resistant action. Aligned action flows, it feels natural, it does not deplete you. Resistant action exhausts, it feels like pushing a boulder uphill. It drains your resources without producing results. The principle of spiritual judo reveals why so many people, despite working incredibly hard, despite being good people with pure intentions, remain stuck in the same problems year after year. They are working hard, yes, but they are working in resistance. Every action they take is accompanied by the inner experience of struggle, of fighting against something, of pushing through obstacles with gritted teeth. This inner resistance creates friction, and friction slows everything down. It takes 10 times more energy to accomplish something when you are doing it in a state of resistance than when you are doing the same thing in a state of flow. Shinn taught that when you remove the resistance, when you pivot out of the fighting stance and into the flowing stance, you suddenly have access to energy you did not know existed. Tasks that once seemed overwhelming become simple. Solutions that were invisible suddenly appear obvious. People who were obstacles become allies. The entire universe seems to conspire in your favor, not because you forced it to, but because you stopped blocking its natural flow toward your benefit. Let us address the fear that stops most people from practicing non-resistance. The fear that if you do not fight, you will lose. This fear is deeply embedded in our collective consciousness, especially for men who have been conditioned to believe that their worth is measured by their willingness to fight, to push, to never give up even when giving up would be the wisest choice. But consider what Shinn is actually teaching. By refusing to fight, you are not surrendering to the problem. You are surrendering your personal limited strategy for solving the problem. You are admitting that you do not have all the answers, that your human perspective cannot see all the factors at play, that your efforts to control the situation through resistance might actually be making things worse. This admission is not weakness, it is profound wisdom. When a judo master steps aside from an attack, is he surrendering? No, he is using superior strategy. He understands that meeting force with force is the strategy of the amateur. The master wins through redirect, through using the opponent's momentum against him, through remaining centered and calm while the opponent exhausts himself. This is what you do when you practice spiritual judo. You conserve your energy while the problem exhausts its own energy, and when the dust settles, you are still standing, calm and powerful, while the problem has collapsed. The practice of non-resistance through spiritual judo ultimately teaches you the most important lesson of mastery. You do not need to control everything. In fact, your attempts to control everything through resistance are the source of most of your suffering. Control is an illusion. a fiction the ego tells itself to feel safe in an uncertain world. But the universe is far too complex, far too interconnected for your individual consciousness to control all variables. When you try to control through resistance, fighting every obstacle, worrying about every outcome, attempting to force reality to conform to your limited vision, you exhaust yourself while accomplishing very little. But when you practice non-resistance, when you step aside and trust the law, you tap into a power of orchestration that your personal will could never match. You allow the infinite intelligence that runs galaxies and governs the movement of planets to work on your behalf. And that intelligence, that law, is never confused, never overwhelmed, never uncertain about what to do. It knows exactly how to resolve your situation in the highest and best way possible, but it can only do so when you stop blocking its work with your resistance. Step aside, pivot. Let the law win the battle while you maintain your inner peace. This is the unshakable logic of spiritual judo, and once you see it, once you experience its power, you will never return to the exhausting practice of meeting every problem with force. We must now connect this principle of non-resistance to the larger framework of mastery you have been building. If you have been following the teachings we have explored together, you learned from Wallace D. Wattles about the frictionless way. The understanding that success comes not from struggle, but from alignment with the creative forces of the universe. Wattles taught you to move through life like a ship, cutting smoothly through water rather than a vehicle grinding against rough terrain. He showed you that when you align with the current, when you work with the law rather than against it, progress becomes natural, almost effortless. But here is the connection that will multiply your power exponentially. Florence Scovel Shinn is now giving you the specific tool to remove the biggest source of friction in your life, and that friction is called conflict. Every time you engage in resistance, every time you fight with reality, argue with circumstances, struggle against what is, you create friction. You are dragging the brake while trying to accelerate forward. You are attempting to flow with the current while simultaneously swimming against it. You cannot move fast, you cannot move smoothly, you cannot move powerfully when you are stopping every few feet to fight with every dog that barks at you along the path. Wattles told you to think and act in a certain way, to hold your vision while moving steadily toward it without being distracted by circumstances. But what stops most people from maintaining that steady movement? It is not lack of vision. It is not lack of effort. It is the constant distraction of conflict, the endless series of problems and obstacles that pull their attention away from their goal and into resistance. You are building your vision, moving forward, making progress, and then an obstacle appears. A bill comes due, a person opposes you, a situation goes wrong. The untrained response is to stop everything and fight the obstacle, to pour all your energy into resistance until the obstacle is resolved. But while you are fighting, you are not building. While you are in conflict, you are not creating. While you are resisting one problem, 3 more appear, because resistance is attractive to problems. It feeds them, it validates them, it gives them reality. This is the friction that Wattles warned against, and Shinn is now showing you how to eliminate it. Non-resistance is the oil that removes friction from your forward movement. When you practice it, obstacles still appear. This is life. Obstacles are inevitable. But they no longer slow you down because you refuse to engage with them. You see the obstacle, you acknowledge it, and then you continue moving toward your vision while trusting that the law will handle the obstacle. You do not stop, you do not fight. You keep flowing forward. This is the frictionless way in action. Consider the metaphor Wattles used, the ship cutting through water. The water, representing the circumstances of life, pushes against the ship. There is resistance from the environment. This cannot be avoided. But the ship is designed to minimize that resistance. Its shape allows water to flow around it efficiently. It does not fight the water. It works with the fundamental properties of water to move through it with maximum efficiency. Now imagine a ship designed differently, with flat surfaces that maximize resistance, with a shape that fights against the water rather than flowing through it. This ship, even with a powerful engine, will move slowly, will consume enormous amounts of fuel, will struggle to reach its destination. This is the difference between moving through life with resistance and moving through life with non-resistance. The resistance from circumstances will always be there. People will oppose you. Unexpected problems will arise. Resources will sometimes be tight. But whether those circumstances stop you or merely flow around you as you continue forward depends entirely on your stance. Are you the ship designed for friction or the ship designed for flow? Non-resistance is the design principle that allows you to flow through obstacles rather than colliding with them. Shinn teaches you that you can have your vision, you can move toward your goals, you can build the life you desire, and you can do all of this while remaining in a state of inner peace, untouched by the conflicts that would have once derailed you. This is mastery. This is the synthesis of Wattles' teaching about alignment with the creative force and Shinn's teaching about non-resistance to obstacles. You align with what you want, Wattles, and you refuse to align with what you do not want, Shinn. You give your creative energy to your vision, and you withdraw creative energy from your problems. The result is acceleration, when you are no longer stopping to fight, no longer wasting energy on resistance, no longer being pulled off course by every conflict that appears. You move toward your goals at a speed that will astonish you. Things that you thought would take years happen in months. Obstacles that seemed insurmountable dissolve overnight. Opportunities that were invisible suddenly appear obvious, not because the universe changed, but because you changed your relationship with friction. You eliminated the resistance that was slowing you down, and the natural momentum of life toward expansion and growth carried you forward at its true speed. This connection between Wattles and Shinn also illuminates something crucial. The frictionless way is not just about positive thinking or maintaining a cheerful attitude. It is about strategic use of your attention and energy. Wattles taught you where to place your attention, on the vision, on the goal, on what you want to create. Shinn is now teaching you where not to place your attention, on obstacles, on conflicts, on what you want to avoid. Together, these teachings give you a complete system. You know where to look and where not to look. You know where to invest energy and where to withdraw energy. You know when to act, when inspired by your vision, and when to stand still, when tempted to resist an obstacle. This is not passive, this is supremely active and strategic. You are consciously directing the flow of your creative power, refusing to let it leak out through the holes of resistance and conflict. You are becoming a master of energy management, which is ultimately what all spiritual teaching is about. Learning to direct your life force in ways that create what you want rather than what you fear. Let me make this practical with an example that will bring these abstract principles into concrete reality. Imagine you have a business goal. You want to reach a certain level of revenue within a year. You have studied Wattles, so you hold this vision clearly. You think about it daily. You see yourself achieving it. You move toward it through inspired action. This is all correct according to Wattles' teaching. But then, problems arise, as they always do. A client does not pay. A competitor undercuts your price. An employee quits at a crucial time. An unexpected expense depletes your cash reserves. Now, without Shinn's teaching, what would you do? You would stop. You would pour all your energy into fighting each problem as it arises. You would spend days worried about the unpaid invoice, strategizing how to handle the competitor, scrambling to replace the employee, stressing about the expense. All of this is resistance, and all of it creates friction. You are no longer moving smoothly toward your goal. You are lurching forward, stopping, fighting, worrying, stopping again. Your energy is scattered across a dozen different conflicts instead of focused on your vision. But now apply Shinn's principle of non-resistance. The same problems arise, but your response is different. The client does not pay. You notice it. You take the practical steps required, send a reminder, make a phone call. But you do not resist. You do not waste energy worrying or being angry. You mentally release it and continue focusing on your revenue goal, trusting that the money will come from expected or unexpected sources. The competitor undercuts your price. Instead of panicking and dropping your prices in resistance, you remain confident in your value, you trust that the right clients will come to you, you continue executing your plan. The employee quits. You acknowledge the inconvenience, you handle the immediate logistics, but you do not spiral into fear about what this means for your business. You trust that the right replacement will appear, and you continue moving forward. See the difference? In the second scenario, you are practicing the frictionless way through non-resistance. Problems arise, but they do not stop you because you refuse to give them the energy of your resistance. You handle what must be handled, you release what cannot be controlled, and you maintain your focus on your vision. The result is that you maintain your momentum. You keep moving forward smoothly, while those who resist every obstacle are lurching and stopping and starting over and over, exhausting themselves while making minimal progress. The integration of these teachings, Wattles' frictionless way and Shinn's non-resistance, also protects you from a trap that catches many people who study success principles, the trap of thinking that spiritual laws eliminate problems. Some people believe that if they are doing everything right, if they are visualizing correctly, affirming positively, holding the right thoughts, they should not face any obstacles at all. This is a fundamental misunderstanding. Problems are not evidence that you are doing something wrong or that the law is not working. Problems are simply part of the human experience. They are the contrast that helps you clarify what you want, the challenges that help you grow. What changes when you master these principles is not the presence of problems, but your relationship with them. You stop seeing them as evidence of failure. You stop allowing them to derail your progress. You recognize them for what they are: temporary conditions, neutral in themselves, that require only a calm, non-resistant response rather than a dramatic, fearful reaction. The master still faces obstacles, but he flows around them so smoothly that to an outside observer it appears as if he faces no obstacles at all. This is the power of combining the frictionless way with non-resistance. You do not eliminate obstacles, but you become so skilled at flowing past them that they cease to have any real impact on your progress. Here is another dimension of this connection that you must understand. Non-resistance is what allows the certain way that Wattles taught to actually work. Wattles said to hold your vision without wavering, to maintain faith in the law, to act with confidence and purpose. But how can you maintain faith when obstacles appear? How can you hold your vision without wavering when circumstances seem to contradict that vision? This is where most people fail in applying Wattles' teaching. They can hold the vision when things are going well, but the moment an obstacle appears, their faith wavers. They begin to doubt. They start thinking, maybe this is not going to work. Maybe I was fooling myself. Maybe the law does not apply to me. This doubt is resistance, and it creates friction that stops their progress. But when you understand Shinn's principle of non-resistance, you have the tool to maintain your faith even when obstacles appear. You recognize that the obstacle is not evidence that your vision is wrong. It is simply a condition passing through your experience, and your job is not to fight it, but to remain focused on your vision while trusting that the law is working behind the scenes to resolve it. Non-resistance is the practice that keeps you on the certain way, even when circumstances would tempt you to abandon it. It is the bridge between the theory that Wattles taught and the practical daily experience of living that theory in a world full of challenges. The synthesis becomes complete when you realize that both teachers are pointing to the same truth from different angles. Wattles emphasized alignment with the creative force, thinking and acting in harmony with the power that is seeking expression through you. Shinn emphasized non-resistance to obstacles, refusing to fight with conditions, trusting the law to handle what you cannot control. These are not separate teachings, they are two sides of the same coin. To align with the creative force, you must stop resisting what is. To practice non-resistance, you must be aligned with something greater than your personal will. When you try to practice Wattles' teaching without Shinn's, you will find yourself constantly frustrated by obstacles, constantly tempted to abandon your vision when things get difficult. When you try to practice Shinn's teaching without Wattles, you might become passive, releasing everything without having a clear direction or vision to move toward. But when you combine them, when you hold a clear vision, Wattles, while practicing non-resistance to obstacles, Shinn, you become unstoppable. You have direction without rigidity. You have faith without naivety. You have power without struggle. You become the living embodiment of the frictionless way, moving through life with a grace and effectiveness that others will marvel at, never realizing that your secret is simply this: you have learned to stop fighting. Now we turn to another master, whose teaching connects powerfully with Florence Scovel Shinn's principle of non-resistance, Joseph Murphy, and his method for reprogramming the subconscious mind. Murphy taught that your subconscious mind is the creative medium through which your thoughts become reality, that it accepts whatever beliefs you impress upon it and then works day and night to manifest those beliefs in your external circumstances. He showed you the technique of impressing new beliefs upon your subconscious through repetition, through visualization before sleep, through the feeling of your desire already fulfilled. This is powerful knowledge, and countless people have transformed their lives by applying Murphy's method correctly. But here is what Murphy did not emphasize, and here is where Shinn's teaching becomes absolutely essential. You cannot effectively reprogram your subconscious mind while you are in a state of resistance. Resistance locks the file. Let me explain this clearly, because understanding this principle will save you months or years of frustrated effort trying to apply techniques that cannot work while you are in the wrong internal state. Your subconscious mind operates like a computer hard drive storing files. Each belief, each pattern, each habitual way of thinking is a file. Some of these files serve you. The belief that you are capable, the pattern of seeing opportunities, the habit of taking action when inspired. Other files do not serve you. The belief that money is scarce, the pattern of expecting problems, the habit of doubting yourself. Murphy's method is essentially teaching you how to overwrite the files that do not serve you with new files that do. You create a new belief through conscious thought. You repeat it with feeling until the subconscious accepts it, and then the subconscious begins manifesting circumstances that match the new belief instead of the old one. This is correct. This works. But here is the crucial point. When you are in resistance to a condition, when you are fighting with it, hating it, being angry about it, deeply afraid of it, that file is locked in read-only mode. You cannot overwrite a file that is locked. You can try to install the new belief, you can repeat your affirmations, you can visualize your desired outcome, but none of it takes root because the old belief is locked in place by the intensity of your emotional resistance to the current condition. Think about this carefully because it explains why so many people try techniques like affirmations and visualization and conclude that they do not work. The technique is sound, but they are applying it while in a state of resistance, which makes effective application impossible. Here is a concrete example. Imagine someone who is deeply in debt and desperately wants to manifest prosperity. They learn about Murphy's method. They begin affirming, "I am wealthy. Money flows to me easily." They visualize having abundance. But while they are doing these practices, they are also in constant resistance to their debt. Every time they think about their debt, which is dozens of times per day, they feel fear, resentment, anger, desperation. They hate the debt. They rail against the unfairness of it. They worry obsessively about it. All of this emotional intensity around the debt locks that file. The "I am in debt, money is scarce, I am struggling financially" file into read-only mode. So their affirmations and visualizations are like trying to install new software on a system where the old software is locked and cannot be uninstalled. The new beliefs cannot take root because the old beliefs are held in place with tremendous emotional force. The person becomes frustrated. "I have been affirming and visualizing for months, but nothing changes." The problem is not that the method does not work. The problem is that they are trying to use the method while simultaneously practicing resistance, and resistance prevents the method from working. This is where Shinn's teaching becomes the essential missing piece. Non-resistance unlocks the file. When you stop fighting with the current condition, when you withdraw your emotional engagement from what you do not want, when you practice the blessing of obstacles that we will explore shortly, you unlock the file. The old belief is no longer held in place with emotional intensity. It becomes fluid, changeable, capable of being overwritten. Now, Murphy's method can work. Now your affirmations can take root. Now your visualizations can impress themselves upon your subconscious. You are no longer trying to write over a locked file. You are writing over a file that has been unlocked and made available for editing. Do you see the power of this? Shinn and Murphy are not teaching contradictory methods. They are teaching complementary aspects of the same process. Murphy teaches you what to install in your subconscious. Shinn teaches you how to unlock your subconscious so that what you want to install can actually be installed. Without both pieces, you will struggle. With both pieces, transformation becomes not just possible but inevitable. Let us go deeper into the mechanism of how resistance locks the file. Every thought you think is accompanied by an emotional charge. Neutral thoughts, thoughts you think casually without much feeling, have minimal impact on your subconscious. But thoughts you think with intense emotion, whether that emotion is positive or negative, impress themselves deeply on your subconscious. This is why trauma creates such deep patterns. The experience was accompanied by intense emotion, so it was impressed deeply. But this same principle works against you when you are in resistance. When you think about your debt with intense fear and hatred, when you think about your illness with intense worry and despair, when you think about your conflict with intense anger and resentment, you are impressing those negative beliefs deeper into your subconscious with every emotional repetition. The very intensity of your resistance to the condition is strengthening the subconscious pattern that is creating the condition. You are literally reinforcing what you want to change. And because you are reinforcing it with such emotional intensity, it becomes locked. The file becomes read-only, resistant to change, firmly entrenched. Meanwhile, your positive affirmations, which you might repeat mechanically without much feeling because you are mostly thinking about the problem you are trying to solve, have weak emotional charge. They cannot compete with the intense emotional energy you are pouring into resistance. The negative pattern remains locked and dominant, while the positive affirmation is too weak to make any real impression. Shinn understood this dynamic perfectly, which is why she emphasized that you must bless what you want to release. Blessing is the opposite of resistance. When you bless something, you release your emotional charge around it. You stop fighting it. You acknowledge it without hating it. This withdrawal of emotional intensity unlocks the file. The old pattern, no longer reinforced by the intense emotion of resistance, begins to weaken. It becomes fluid. And now, when you apply Murphy's method, when you affirm the opposite, when you visualize the desired outcome, when you impress the new belief upon your subconscious, there is nothing blocking it. The old pattern cannot hold because you have withdrawn its fuel. The new pattern can establish itself because you have cleared the space for it. This is the integration of these teachings. Non-resistance, Shinn, unlocks the subconscious, allowing reprogramming, Murphy, to work effectively. Without non-resistance, reprogramming is like trying to plant seeds in concrete. You can plant all day, but nothing will grow because the ground is too hard. With non-resistance, you soften the ground, making it receptive to new seeds. And now Murphy's method of deliberate mental gardening can produce the harvest you desire. Consider the metaphor of a clenched fist. When your hand is clenched tightly in a fist, gripping something you do not want to let go of, you cannot pick up anything new. Your hand is occupied, closed, unavailable. This is what resistance does to your subconscious. It clenches around the old pattern, gripping it tightly because you are so focused on it, so emotionally engaged with it, even though you hate it. Your subconscious cannot accept the new pattern Murphy teaches you to install because it is already full, already clenched around the old pattern. But when you practice non-resistance, when you bless and release what you have been fighting, your hand opens. The old pattern falls away. Now your hand is open, available, ready to receive and hold the new pattern. This is not just metaphor. This is describing the actual mechanism by which consciousness works. You cannot hold two opposite patterns simultaneously with equal emotional intensity. The one you are resisting, because resistance involves intense emotion, will always dominate over the one you are trying to install if you are installing it mechanically or with weak emotional conviction. Non-resistance removes the emotional intensity from the old pattern, creating space for the new pattern to be impressed with the emotional intensity it needs to become dominant. The practical application of this integration is powerful. When you want to use Murphy's method to change your circumstances, whether to manifest prosperity, heal your body, attract love, or achieve any goal, You must first practice Shinn's method of releasing resistance to your current circumstances. Before you affirm, "I am wealthy," you must release your resistance to your current lack. Before you visualize perfect health, you must release your resistance to your current illness. Before you impress your subconscious with the belief that you are loved and worthy, you must release your resistance to past rejection or current loneliness. This is not pretending the current condition does not exist. You acknowledge it. "I have debt. This is the current condition." But you do not fight it. "I release all resistance to this debt. I bless it, and I trust it is being resolved." This acknowledgement without resistance unlocks the file. Then you apply Murphy's method. "I now impress upon my subconscious the belief that I am prosperous. Money flows to me from expected and unexpected sources. I see myself living abundantly." Now this new belief can take root because you have prepared the ground through non-resistance. Shinn also helps you understand why Murphy's method sometimes appears to work slowly or not at all for certain people. Murphy taught that you must persist with your new belief, repeating it until the subconscious accepts it, and this is true. But if you are repeating your affirmation twice a day for 5 minutes, while spending the remaining 23 hours and 50 minutes in intense resistance to your current circumstances, what do you think your subconscious is actually recording? It is recording the thought pattern you are thinking most often with the most emotion, and that pattern is resistance, not the affirmation. Your 5 minutes of affirmation, especially if done mechanically without deep feeling, cannot overcome 23 hours of emotional resistance. This is why Shinn's teaching is not optional. It is essential. You must reduce the time you spend in resistance if you want Murphy's method to work. Ideally, you eliminate resistance entirely through constant practice of non-resistance. Then your consciousness is no longer reinforcing the old pattern at all. The old pattern weakens naturally through lack of attention and emotional fuel. Meanwhile, your deliberate practice of impressing new beliefs has no competition. The new belief establishes itself quickly and firmly because there is no locked file blocking it, no intense emotional pattern contradicting it. Your subconscious accepts the new belief and begins creating circumstances that match it. And you experience what seems like miraculous change, though it is not miracle. It is simply law operating without interference. Here is another critical insight from this integration. Murphy taught that your subconscious works best when you are in a relaxed, drowsy state, particularly just before sleep. This is true, and it is why he recommended impressing your desires on your subconscious during the twilight state between waking and sleeping. But here is what Shinn adds to this understanding. If you spend your day in resistance, fighting, worrying, struggling, you will approach sleep in a state of tension, not relaxation. Your mind will be churning with problems, your body will be tight with stress, and you will either have difficulty falling asleep or you will fall asleep while still mentally rehearsing your problems. In this state, even if you manage to repeat an affirmation before sleep, it has minimal impact because your overall state is one of resistance. But when you practice non-resistance throughout your day, when you refuse to engage with every problem emotionally, when you bless obstacles instead of fighting them, you approach sleep in a naturally relaxed state. Your mind is calm, your body is at ease. Now, when you impress your desire upon your subconscious in that twilight state, it sinks in deeply because there is no resistance blocking it. You fall asleep in the feeling of your wish fulfilled, as Murphy taught, because you are not carrying the burden of resistance into sleep. This is the practical synthesis. Non-resistance throughout the day creates the optimal state for Murphy's reprogramming method to work powerfully at night. The integration of Shinn and Murphy also reveals why belief change is often not enough by itself. Murphy taught that you must change your beliefs, and this is correct. Your external circumstances are a reflection of your internal beliefs, so changing the beliefs must change the circumstances. But belief change is a process, not an instant event for most people. It takes time to overwrite deeply entrenched patterns. During that time, while you are working to establish new beliefs, you are still dealing with current circumstances that reflect the old beliefs. If you are in resistance to those circumstances, you slow down or block the process of belief change. But if you practice non-resistance while also working to change beliefs, you create a powerful synergy. The non-resistance ensures you are not reinforcing the old belief pattern with emotional intensity, allowing it to weaken naturally. Meanwhile, your conscious work with affirmation and visualization establishes the new belief pattern. The old pattern weakens as the new pattern strengthens, and because you are not in resistance, the transition happens smoothly and relatively quickly. This is mastery. Understanding that transformation requires both releasing the old through non-resistance and installing the new through deliberate reprogramming, and that these must happen simultaneously for maximum effectiveness. We now arrive at the first practical pillar of Florence Scovel Shinn's non-resistance technique, and this is where theory transforms into tactical action. This pillar is called the blessing of obstacles, and it is one of the most counterintuitive yet powerful spiritual practices ever taught. When Shinn instructs you to bless your obstacles, she is not asking you to pretend you like them. She is not suggesting you deny that they are difficult or that they cause real challenges in your life. She is teaching you a specific energetic technique that changes the relationship between your consciousness and the condition, and in changing that relationship, changes the condition itself. To understand why blessing works, you must first understand the nature of hatred and resentment. When you hate a situation, when you deeply resent it, rail against it, wish violently that it were different, you create an energetic cord between your consciousness and that situation. This cord is how you feed the situation. Your hatred, your fear, your resistance flows through that cord like electricity through a wire, and that energy keeps the situation alive, keeps it solid, keeps it real in your experience. Shinn observed that people remain chained to the very situations they hate most. The woman who hates her difficult marriage cannot leave it. Something always prevents her departure. The man who hates his dead-end job cannot find a new one. Every opportunity falls through. The person who hates their debt cannot get free of it. Every time they make progress, a new expense appears. Why? Because the intense emotion of hatred is a form of attachment. It binds you to what you hate as surely as love binds you to what you cherish. Hatred is not the opposite of love. Indifference is. When you hate something, you are in relationship with it. You are giving it your attention and energy. You are thinking about it constantly. And whatever you give your attention and energy to must persist in your reality, because attention is creative. This is the cruel paradox that keeps people trapped. The very intensity of their desire to be free from a situation, when expressed as hatred and resistance, chains them to that situation more firmly than if they felt nothing about it at all. The man who is indifferent to debt might stumble into money easily. The man who desperately hates debt and thinks about it obsessively will find that debt sticks to him like glue, no matter how hard he works to eliminate it. Blessing is the technique for cutting that energetic cord, for withdrawing the feeding tube that your resistance provides to the unwanted condition. When you bless something, you are not saying you like it. You are not saying it is good or that you want it to continue. You are performing a specific energetic action. You are releasing your emotional charge around it. You are neutralizing the attachment. You are saying, in effect, I acknowledge this condition, but I no longer feed it with my resistance. I release it. I bless it and let it go. The moment you bless something you have been resisting, you free yourself from it. Not because the external condition instantly vanishes, though sometimes it does, but because you are no longer bound to it emotionally and energetically. You have cut the cord. And once the cord is cut, once you stop feeding the condition with the energy of your resistance, it begins to dissolve because it no longer has fuel. It was never the condition itself that was your real problem. It was your resistance to the condition that kept it locked in place. Blessing removes the resistance, and without resistance the condition becomes fluid, changeable, capable of transformation. Let us make this practical with specific examples so you understand exactly how to apply this technique. Imagine you have a debt that causes you enormous stress, perhaps $10,000 on a credit card, accumulating interest, a constant source of anxiety. The normal response is to hate this debt, to resent it, to feel victimized by it, to spend mental energy wishing it did not exist and worrying about how to pay it. This is resistance, and it locks the debt in place. Now apply the blessing technique. You look at the bill, you feel the initial surge of negative emotion, and then you consciously pivot. You say, either silently or aloud, "I bless this debt. I bless it because it means I was trusted with resources when I needed them. I bless it because it has taught me something valuable about money. I bless it and release it to the law of prosperity, trusting that it is being resolved in the perfect way." Notice what happens inside you when you genuinely practice this. The heavy, tight feeling of anxiety begins to loosen. You do not hate the debt anymore. You are not in relationship with it anymore. You have neutralized it energetically. And once neutralized, it can transform. You might receive unexpected money to pay it. The terms might change favorably. A solution might appear that you never considered. But whether the resolution is dramatic or gradual, the blessing ensures that you are no longer suffering over the debt, no longer allowing it to control your emotional state and drain your energy. Apply this same technique to a difficult person in your life. Perhaps you have an enemy, someone who has wronged you or who opposes you consistently. The normal response is to hate this person, to wish them harm, to replay their offenses in your mind, to strategize how to defeat or avoid them. All of this is resistance, and it binds you to them. You cannot be free while you hate them, because hatred is a chain. Shinn teaches, "I bless you and release you." Say this about your enemy. "I bless you, I release you. You have no power over my peace. I release you to your highest good, and I am free." This is not saying that what they did was acceptable. This is not condoning their behavior or pretending to like them. This is cutting the energetic cord that binds you to them through hatred. When you genuinely bless and release someone who has hurt you, you reclaim all the energy you were spending on resentment. That energy becomes available for creating what you want instead of perpetuating what you do not want. And often something remarkable happens. The person who was an enemy either disappears from your life naturally, or they change, or the situation resolves in a way you never expected. Not because you manipulated them through blessing, but because you changed the energetic dynamic. You stopped being their opponent. You withdrew from the conflict. And with no one to fight, the conflict collapses. The blessing technique also works powerfully for physical conditions. If you are facing illness, the natural response is to hate the illness, to resist it, to see it as an enemy that must be defeated. But illness, like debt or conflict, persists when you resist it. Your body is your subconscious mind made visible. When you hate a part of your body or a condition in your body, you create tension and resistance within your own system, and that tension blocks healing. Shinn taught people to bless their illness. "I bless this condition. I thank my body for the message it is sending me. I release all fear around this condition, and I trust that healing is happening now." This is not denying the illness. This is changing your relationship with it from one of warfare to one of cooperation. Your body is not your enemy. When you stop treating it as such, when you bless it instead of fighting it, you create the internal conditions necessary for healing. The tension releases, the fear dissolves. And healing, which is the natural state of the body when fear and resistance are removed, can occur. Medical treatment can become more effective because you are no longer blocking its effectiveness with resistance, or healing can occur through unexpected means. But in either case, you are no longer suffering the secondary problem of hating your own body, which is perhaps an even greater suffering than the physical condition itself. Understanding why blessing works requires understanding the nature of vibration and frequency. Every condition, every situation, every problem exists at a particular frequency. Debt exists at the frequency of lack. Conflict exists at the frequency of separation. Illness exists at the frequency of disharmony. When you resist these conditions, when you hate them, fear them, fight them, you are matching their frequency. You are vibrating at the same rate as the problem, which means you are in resonance with it, which means it is firmly established in your reality. But love, blessing, gratitude, these exist at a much higher frequency. They are the highest frequencies available to human consciousness. When you bless something, you are deliberately raising your vibration in relationship to it. You are choosing to respond to a low-frequency condition with a high-frequency emotion. And here is the crucial principle. Low frequency and high frequency cannot occupy the same space. They are incompatible. When you successfully raise your frequency through blessing, the low frequency condition cannot maintain its hold on you. It begins to dissolve not because you fought it, but because you transcended it. You move to a frequency where that condition cannot exist. Think of ice and steam. They are both water, but they exist at different temperatures. Ice cannot exist at the temperature of steam. If you want to eliminate ice, you do not chip away at it with force. You raise the temperature. The ice melts and transforms into water, and if you raise the temperature high enough, it becomes steam. This is what blessing does energetically. The problem is ice, solid, cold, seemingly permanent. Your resistance keeps the temperature low, keeps the problem solid. But blessing raises the temperature. You introduce the heat of love, of acceptance, of release, and at that higher temperature, the problem cannot remain in its solid form. It melts, it transforms, it evaporates. This is not metaphor. This is describing the actual mechanism by which consciousness transforms conditions. Shinn understood this implicitly. Even if she did not use these exact terms, she knew that blessing was the technique for raising the frequency, for introducing the heat that melts obstacles. The practice of blessing also reveals something profound about the nature of power. Most people believe that power comes from force, from the ability to push, to fight, to overcome through effort. But Shinn teaches a different understanding of power. True power is the ability to remain centered, calm and loving in the face of what would cause others to react with fear or hatred. Anyone can hate. Hatred is easy, automatic, requires no skill or mastery. But to look at something that has hurt you, something that threatens you, something that represents everything you do not want, and to bless it, that requires tremendous power. It requires you to override every instinct, every conditioned response, every urge for revenge or self-protection. It requires you to trust the law so completely that you can release your grip on control. This is the power of the spiritual master. Not the power to dominate others, not the power to force circumstances to bend to your will, but the power to bless what would destroy a lesser man, to remain loving in the face of hatred, to transcend the frequency of the problem rather than being dragged down to its level. Let me give you a specific formula for practicing blessing, a step-by-step process you can use with any obstacle. First, identify the obstacle clearly. Name it. This debt, this person, this illness, this situation. Second, acknowledge the resistance you feel. Do not pretend you do not hate it or fear it. Notice the emotion without judging it. I notice that I have been hating this debt. I notice that I have been in resistance. Third, make the conscious decision to release the resistance. I now choose to release my resistance to this debt. I choose to be free. Fourth, speak the blessing, either silently or aloud, and do so with as much genuine feeling as you can muster. I bless this debt. I bless everyone involved. I release this to the law of prosperity. I trust that it is being resolved in the perfect way, and I am free. Fifth, whenever the thought of the obstacle returns to your mind, and it will, repeatedly at first, repeat the blessing. Each repetition weakens the cord of resistance and strengthens your freedom. This is not a one-time practice. This is a consistent discipline until the blessing becomes your automatic response instead of resistance. The ultimate goal of blessing is not to change the external condition, though that often happens as a side effect. The ultimate goal is to free yourself internally, to become sovereign over your own emotional state, to reach the point where no external condition can disturb your inner peace. When you can genuinely bless your enemies, bless your problems, bless your challenges, you have achieved a level of mastery that makes you essentially invulnerable. Not invulnerable in the sense that nothing difficult will ever happen to you. Life will still present challenges, but invulnerable in the sense that nothing can disturb your fundamental peace, nothing can make you a victim, nothing can drain your power through the vampire of resistance. You become like a smooth rock in a river. The water flows over you, circumstances move around you, but you remain unmoved, centered, at peace. And from that place of peace, You have access to wisdom and power that are completely unavailable when you are caught in resistance. Blessing is the key that unlocks this state of sovereign peace, and once you have tasted this freedom, you will never willingly return to the prison of resistance. The second pillar of Shinn's non-resistance technique is what she called stand ye still, and it addresses the hardest challenge that any man faces when applying these principles: the impulse to do something, to take action, to fix the problem through force. You have been conditioned your entire life to believe that action is always superior to inaction, that doing something, anything, is better than doing nothing. When a problem arises, every fiber of your being screams at you to act immediately, to take control, to solve it through effort. But Shinn, drawing from ancient scripture, teaches something that sounds like madness to the untrained mind. There are times when the most powerful thing you can do is to stand still, not paralyzed by fear, not passive with indifference, but actively, deliberately still, maintaining your position of faith while the universe rearranges the pieces of the puzzle in ways you cannot see and could not accomplish through personal action. Stand ye still and see the salvation of the Lord, the scripture says, and Shinn took this as a practical instruction, not a poetic sentiment. When you have done everything you know to do, when you have taken all the practical action available to you, when you have used your human resources and reached the limit of what you can personally control, that is when you must stand still. Standing still does not mean giving up. It does not mean accepting defeat. It means something far more powerful. It means holding the position of faith while you wait for the universe to reveal the solution that is beyond your capacity to create through personal effort. Think of a warrior in battle who has fought skillfully and now finds himself surrounded. His instinct is to keep fighting frantically, burning his remaining energy in desperate action. But the master warrior does something different. He finds the most defensible position, plants his feet, raises his guard, and waits with alert stillness for the right moment to act. He is not doing nothing. He is conserving his energy, maintaining his readiness, watching for the opening that will come. This is what Shinn means by standing still. It is the alert stillness of a predator, waiting for the perfect moment to strike, the calm readiness of a master who trusts his training and his instincts. The reason standing still is so difficult for men is that it contradicts everything you have been taught about masculine virtue. From boyhood, you were taught that real men act decisively, that hesitation is weakness, that you must always be doing, achieving, pushing forward. The idea of deliberately choosing to do nothing, to wait, to trust in something beyond your personal control feels like surrender. It feels like weakness. It feels like you are abandoning your responsibility. But Shinn understood something that most never grasp. There is an intelligence operating in the universe that is far superior to your personal intellect. This intelligence, call it God, call it law, call it the universe, can see connections you cannot see, can orchestrate events you cannot orchestrate, can open doors that are closed to your personal effort. But this intelligence cannot work effectively on your behalf while you are in frantic action driven by fear. Your desperate, fear-driven action creates interference. It muddles the field. It works at cross purposes to what the universe is trying to do for you. When you stand still, you get out of the way. You stop creating interference. You allow the intelligence to work without the obstacle of your resistance and your frantic, misguided efforts. Here is a concrete example that will make this principle clear. Imagine you are facing a legal battle, a lawsuit that threatens significant financial loss. You have hired a lawyer, you have gathered your evidence, you have done everything within your power to prepare your case. Now you wait for the court date, which is months away. During those months, what do? The normal response is to worry constantly, to rehearse arguments in your mind, to strategize obsessively, to talk about the case with everyone who will listen, to spend your mental energy fighting the battle in your imagination over and over. This is not standing still. This is resistance. This is frantic mental action driven by fear, and it accomplishes nothing except to drain your energy and reinforce your fear. Now apply Shinn's principle. You have done everything you can do practically. You have hired the lawyer, gathered the evidence, prepared your case. Now you stand still. You release the situation to the law. You might say, I have done my part. I now release this to divine justice. Truth is revealed and harmony is restored. I stand in faith and peace. Then, when thoughts of the lawsuit arise in your mind, and they will constantly at first, you do not engage with them. You do not fight the mental battle. You redirect. I have released this. It is handled. You stand still. You maintain your inner peace. You refuse to waste energy on worry. What happens when you successfully stand still in this way is often sudden and dramatic. Shinn observed this pattern repeatedly. When people truly released a situation and stood in faith, the resolution often came swiftly and unexpectedly. The lawsuit is suddenly dropped. The opposing party offers a settlement far better than expected. A piece of evidence emerges that completely changes the case. Some circumstance shifts that you could never have predicted or controlled through personal action. Why does this happen? Not through magic, but through law. When you were in resistance, when you were worrying and fighting mentally, you were broadcasting a frequency of fear and conflict. That frequency attracted more conflict, reinforced the problem, kept the situation locked in opposition. But when you stood still, when you released the resistance and maintained faith, you changed the frequency you were broadcasting. You moved to the frequency of resolution, harmony, perfect outcome. The law, responding to your new frequency, began orchestrating circumstances to match it. People involved in the situation felt different impulses. New information came to light. Unexpected solutions appeared. Not because you forced them through effort, but because you stopped blocking them with resistance and allowed them to emerge naturally. Standing still also requires you to develop a different relationship with time. Our normal relationship with time is one of impatience and anxiety. We want things resolved now, immediately, on our schedule. When we cannot see progress, when the solution does not appear according to our timeline, we panic. We decide that nothing is happening, that we are not being helped, that we must take desperate action to force an outcome. But Shinn teaches that the universe operates on its own timeline, and that timeline is always perfect, even when it does not match your preference. When you stand still, you are trusting that timeline. You are saying, I do not know when or how this will resolve, but I trust that it is resolving in the perfect way at the perfect time. This trust removes the anxiety of time. You stop checking constantly for results. You stop panicking when days or weeks pass without visible change. You remain calm, centered, knowing that behind the scenes, in ways you cannot see, the machinery of the universe is working to bring about the highest outcome. The practice of standing still does not mean you become passive in your entire life. You continue to live, to work, to take care of your responsibilities. But regarding the specific situation you have released, you become still. You do not obsess over it. You do not take frantic action. You do not let it dominate your thoughts. You handle whatever practical steps are required. You show up for the court date. You pay the bills you can pay. You answer the emails that need answering, but you do it from a place of calm detachment rather than anxious control. You fulfill your responsibilities without being consumed by them. This is the key distinction. Standing still does not mean doing nothing. It means doing what is required without resistance, without fear, without the desperate need to control outcomes. You become like an actor playing a role. You say the lines, you hit the marks, you perform the actions required by the script, but you are not identified with the drama. You are not lost in it. You maintain an inner stillness, even while your body moves and acts. Here is another dimension of standing still that most people miss. It conserves your energy for the moment when action is truly required. Life is full of false alarms, situations that seem to demand immediate action, but actually resolve themselves if left alone. When you react to every apparent problem, when you leap into action every time something goes wrong, you exhaust yourself dealing with things that did not need your intervention. But when you practice standing still, when you wait to see if action is truly necessary, you conserve your energy. And then, when a situation arises that genuinely requires your action, when a door opens that you must walk through, when an opportunity appears that demands your immediate response, you have the energy to act powerfully. You are not depleted from fighting every small battle. You are fresh, alert, ready. This is strategic energy management. The warrior who fights constantly becomes tired and slow. The warrior who stands still until action is necessary strikes with full power when the moment comes. Standing still also teaches you to distinguish between inspired action and fear-driven action, and this distinction is crucial for anyone seeking to live masterfully. Inspired action comes from a calm, centered place. It feels right, it flows naturally. You know what to do, and you do it without resistance or anxiety. This action is powerful because it is aligned with the universe's intention for you. But fear-driven action comes from panic, from the desperate need to control, from the belief that if you do not do something right now, disaster will occur. This action feels frantic, forced, exhausting, and it rarely produces good results because it is not aligned. It is resistance in the form of action. When you practice standing still, you create the space to notice the difference between these two types of action. You wait until you feel the inspiration, the inner knowing that guides you to act. And when that guidance comes, you act decisively. But you do not act from fear. You do not act from impatience. You do not act just to feel like you are doing something. You act only when the action is inspired, and that action carries power that fear-driven action never could. The scriptural instruction to stand still and see the salvation contains a promise that Shinn took literally. When you stand still in faith, you will see salvation. You will witness the resolution of your situation in ways that exceed what you could have accomplished through personal effort. But you must actually stand still. You must actually maintain faith. Most people fail at this practice not because they do not try, but because they give up too soon. They stand still for a day, maybe a week, and when they do not see immediate results, they panic. They decide that standing still is not working, that they must take matters into their own hands, that faith is foolish. And so they leap back into resistance, back into frantic action, back into trying to control everything through personal will. And in doing so, they interrupt the process that was already working. They cut the wire just as the electricity was about to flow through. The resolution was coming, but they could not wait for it. They could not maintain the stillness long enough for the salvation to appear. Standing still requires a level of faith that most people have never developed because they have never been taught to develop it. Faith is not belief without evidence. Faith is knowing that the law works even when you cannot see how. It is the absolute confidence that when you align with the law, when you release resistance, when you stand in the position of trust, the universe must respond. The law is impersonal, but utterly reliable. It does not play favorites. It does not sometimes work and sometimes fail. It always works, but it works through those who cooperate with it, who align with it, who stand still long enough for it to complete its work. This is what separates the master from the amateur. The master can stand still through the entire storm, calm and confident, knowing that the storm will pass and the sun will shine again. The amateur panics at the first sign of turbulence and leaps into frantic action that only prolongs the storm. Which will you be? The question is not whether you have problems. Everyone has problems. The question is whether you can stand still in the face of those problems, maintaining faith while the universe works out the solution. This is the practice that transforms you from someone who is at the mercy of circumstances into someone who is master of their internal state, regardless of external circumstances. And once you are master of your internal state, external circumstances must eventually align to match that mastery. Now we must examine the evidence that validates everything Shinn taught about non-resistance, because you are not being asked to accept these principles on faith alone. You are being shown a law as reliable as gravity, and like all laws, it can be tested and proven through observation and application. The principle that what you resist persists is not a platitude or a hopeful sentiment. It is a description of how consciousness interacts with reality, and the evidence for its truth is available in your own life if you look carefully. Think back over the major problems you have faced in your life, the situations that caused you the most suffering. Now examine them with brutal honesty. Which situations resolved quickly and easily, and which situations dragged on for months or years, causing continuous suffering? You will notice a pattern if you look carefully enough. The situations that resolved quickly were either situations you did not care deeply about, you were relatively indifferent so there was minimal resistance, or situations where you somehow found the ability to release your grip, to stop fighting, to trust that a solution would emerge. The situations that dragged on endlessly, that seemed impossible to resolve, that consumed your energy and dominated your thoughts for extended periods, were situations you resisted fiercely. You hated them. You fought them. You worried about them constantly, and that resistance, that intense emotional engagement, kept them locked in your reality like a prisoner chained to a wall. Consider the common experience of trying to force a romantic relationship that is not working. The more desperately you cling to someone who is pulling away, the more aggressively they pull away. Your resistance to their departure, your desperate need for them to stay, creates a pressure that pushes them further from you. But when you finally release them, when you truly let go and accept that they are free to leave, one of two things happens. Either they leave completely, which frees you to find someone better suited to you, or they suddenly become interested again because you have stopped chasing them. The pressure is gone, your desperate need is gone. You are no longer resisting the possibility of their departure, so the departure loses its momentum. This is the law in action. What you resist persists. When you resisted their pulling away by clinging harder, they pulled away harder. When you stopped resisting by releasing them, the situation transformed. The same principle applies to every area of life. The job you hate but cannot quit. Your hatred of it is what keeps you trapped there. The financial problem you obsess over. Your obsession feeds it energy. The physical symptom you fight against. Your fighting creates the tension that prevents healing. Let us examine specific evidence from the realm of health, because physical healing is one of the clearest areas where the principle of non-resistance can be observed. Medical science has established beyond doubt that stress, which is simply sustained resistance to what is, creates physiological changes that suppress immune function, increase inflammation, disrupt healing, and contribute to countless diseases. When you are in chronic resistance to a condition, your body remains in a state of stress response. Cortisol floods your system, blood pressure remains elevated, muscles stay tense, sleep is disrupted, digestion is impaired. In this state, your body cannot heal effectively no matter what medical treatment you apply, because you are working against the treatment with your resistance. But when you release the resistance, when you accept the current condition without fighting it, when you trust that healing is possible, when you relax your grip on control, your body shifts out of stress response into rest and recovery mode. Cortisol levels drop, inflammation decreases, immune function strengthens, sleep improves, digestion normalizes. Now your body can actually heal, and medical treatment becomes far more effective because you are not blocking it with resistance. This is not speculation. This is documented medical fact. Your internal state, resistance or acceptance, directly affects your body's capacity to heal. Every doctor who has practiced for any length of time can tell you about patients who recovered against all odds because they maintained a positive, trusting attitude, and about patients who failed to recover despite excellent treatment because they remained in fear and resistance. The difference is not mysterious. It is the law of non-resistance operating through biology. Evidence for this law also appears consistently in the realm of finances. Observe successful people carefully, particularly those who have maintained success over time rather than achieving temporary windfalls. You will notice that successful people do not obsess over money. They think about value, about service, about their vision, about the work they love. Money is a byproduct of that focus, not the focus itself. They are not in resistance to lack, because they do not focus on lack. Meanwhile, observe people who struggle financially despite working hard. Almost universally, they are in intense resistance to their financial situation. They think about lack constantly. They worry about bills, they resent their poverty. They envy those who have more. All of this is resistance, and it locks them into the frequency of lack. Their hard work accomplishes little because they are working against themselves energetically. This is why Shinn emphasized that to manifest prosperity, you must stop resisting your current lack. You acknowledge it. This is my current balance. But you do not hate it or fear it. You release it and focus instead on the feeling of abundance, on gratitude for what you have, on faith that more is coming. When you make this shift, money begins to flow more easily. Not because you worked harder, but because you stopped blocking the flow with resistance. The evidence becomes even more compelling when you look at situations of conflict resolution. Nations that have been at war for generations finally make peace not when one side defeats the other through superior force, but when both sides become exhausted from fighting and finally agree to stop resisting each other's existence. Marriages that have been full of conflict for years suddenly improve not when one partner finally wins an argument, but when both partners stop keeping score, stop fighting about who is right, stop resisting the other's differences. Business partnerships that have been toxic suddenly become productive not when one party forces their will on the other, but when both parties release their positions and focus on common goals. In every case, the resolution comes not through increased resistance, but through decreased resistance. The fighting did not solve the problem. Releasing the fight solved the problem. This is the law demonstrating itself in countless ways every day, but most people miss the evidence because they are not looking for it. They believe the cultural myth that problems are solved through force, so they keep forcing, keep fighting, keep resisting, and they never notice that their resistance is the actual problem. Personal testimony provides another compelling form of evidence. Shinn's own work was filled with case studies of people who applied her principles and experienced what appeared to be miraculous results. A woman facing an impossible legal judgment releases it in faith and watches the judgment be overturned on a technicality. A man loses his job and instead of panicking, trusts that a better opportunity is coming and within days receives an offer for a position he never would have found through his own searching. A person facing eviction releases their fear about homelessness and blesses their landlord. And the next day, the landlord calls to apologize and reduce their rent. Are these coincidences? If they were isolated incidents, perhaps, but when you see the same pattern repeat thousands of times, when you see that people who release resistance consistently experience unexpected solutions, while people who maintain resistance consistently experience prolonged problems, you begin to understand that you are observing a law, not random chance. The law does not work sometimes and fail other times. It works consistently for those who apply it consistently. The scientific understanding of quantum physics provides yet another form of validation for Shinn's teaching, though she taught these principles long before quantum mechanics became mainstream knowledge. Quantum physics has demonstrated that the observer affects the observed, that consciousness plays a role in determining what manifests from the field of possibilities. Your observation is not neutral. It collapses the wave function, selecting from infinite possibilities the one that matches your expectation. When you observe your situation with resistance, when you look at it through the lens of fear, hatred, and struggle, you are collapsing the wave function in a particular way. You are selecting from all possible outcomes the outcomes that match the frequency of resistance. You are essentially instructing the quantum field, give me more of this thing I am resisting. And the field, being impersonal and responsive to your consciousness, delivers. But when you observe your situation with non-resistance, when you look at it through the lens of faith, trust, and release, you collapse the wave function differently. You select outcomes that match the frequency of peace and resolution. This is not metaphysical speculation anymore. This is physics. Consciousness affects reality at the quantum level, and the state of your consciousness, resistant or non-resistant, determines which potentials become actual in your experience. Another powerful form of evidence comes from examining moments in your own life when you accidentally practiced non-resistance without realizing it. Perhaps there was a problem you had fought with for months, exhausting yourself in resistance, and finally, in a moment of total exhaustion, you gave up. Not gave up in defeat, but gave up the fight. You released your grip. You thought, I cannot do this anymore. I do not know how to solve this. I am just going to let it be what it is. And what happened? Often, within hours or days of that release, the solution appeared. The money came, the relationship healed, the opportunity emerged. You probably attributed it to luck or coincidence, but it was neither. It was the law responding to your change in frequency. As long as you were fighting, you were blocking the solution. The moment you released the fight, you opened the channel through which the solution could flow. This is evidence from your own experience, and it is the most convincing evidence of all, because you lived it. If you examine your past carefully, you will find multiple instances of this pattern. You fought and struggled with no results, you finally gave up the fight, and suddenly, the situation transformed. This is not random. This is law. The ultimate validation of Shinn's teaching comes not from external evidence but from direct personal experience, and this is why you must test these principles yourself rather than simply accepting them as interesting philosophy. The evidence becomes undeniable when you consciously apply non-resistance to a specific situation in your life and observe what happens. This is not about believing blindly. This is about conducting an experiment with your own consciousness and your own circumstances. Here is how to do this. Identify one situation in your life right now that is causing you stress, one problem you have been fighting against with resistance. It does not have to be your biggest problem. In fact, it is better to start with something moderate rather than attempting to release resistance around your most emotionally charged issue. Choose something that matters enough that resolving it would improve your life, but not something so overwhelming that you cannot imagine releasing your grip on it. Now make a conscious decision. For the next 30 days, you will practice non-resistance toward this one situation. This means you will apply everything you have learned. When thoughts of the situation arise, you will not indulge in worry or hatred. You will substitute those thoughts with faith and trust. You will bless the situation and everyone involved. You will release it to the law. When you feel the urge to take desperate action driven by fear, you will stand still and wait for inspired guidance. You will handle whatever practical responsibilities are required, but you will do so from a calm, detached place rather than from anxiety. And you will watch. You will observe carefully what happens over the course of these 30 days. Does the situation transform? Do unexpected solutions appear? Do your feelings about the situation change even if the external circumstances have not yet changed? Do you feel more at peace, more powerful, more in control of yourself, if not the situation? This experiment costs you nothing except the willingness to try a different approach than the resistance that has not worked. And the evidence you gather through this experiment will be far more convincing than anything I or anyone else could tell you, because it will be evidence from your own direct experience. When you successfully complete this experiment, when you practice genuine non-resistance for a sustained period and observe the results, something shifts fundamentally in your understanding of reality. You move from theoretical knowledge to experiential knowing. You know, not because someone told you or because you read it in a book, but because you have seen it work in your own life. This knowing becomes unshakable. No one can argue you out of it. No setback can undermine it. You have proven to yourself that non-resistance works, that it is a law as reliable as any physical law, that it produces consistent results when applied consistently. And once you have this direct knowledge, you begin to apply it naturally in other areas of your life. The practice of non-resistance stops being a technique you try occasionally and becomes your default response to challenges. When a problem arises, your automatic reaction is no longer to fight it. Your automatic reaction becomes to bless it, release it, stand still in faith and wait for the solution to emerge. You have been reprogrammed at a deep level through your own experience. The shift in your life when you fully integrate this practice is nothing short of revolutionary. You discover that you can remain calm and centered in situations that would have once sent you into panic. You find that solutions come more easily and quickly because you are no longer blocking them with resistance. You notice that you have far more energy available because you are no longer draining yourself through constant fighting and worry. People around you begin to respond to you differently because you are no longer giving off the energy of struggle and desperation. You are radiating calm confidence instead. Opportunities appear that would not have appeared before because you are now on a different frequency, attracting different circumstances. Your health improves because you are no longer creating chronic stress through resistance. Your relationships improve because you are no longer bringing the energy of conflict into every interaction. Your financial situation improves because you are no longer vibrating at the frequency of lack. Every area of your life begins to transform, not because you forced the transformation through effort, but because you stopped resisting. and allowed the natural flow of life to move through you toward expansion and good. There comes a moment in this journey when you realize something profound. You are no longer afraid of problems, not because problems have stopped appearing. They have not, and they never will. Problems are simply part of the human experience. But you are not afraid of them anymore because you know how to handle them. You know that any problem, no matter how solid and insurmountable it appears, can be dissolved through non-resistance. You have the technology. You have the method. You have proven to yourself that it works. This knowledge gives you a kind of courage that is unshakable. You can face anything because you know that you do not have to fight everything. You can bless it, release it, stand still, and trust the law to handle it. This does not make you passive or weak. It makes you powerful in a way that most people never experience. You become like a master martial artist who is never afraid in a fight because he knows he does not have to meet force with force. He can deflect, redirect, use the opponent's energy against them, win without fighting. This is the power that Shinn taught, the power of winning through non-resistance, of dissolving obstacles without struggle, of achieving your goals through alignment rather than force. The final validation comes from observing the quality of your inner life as you practice these principles. Before learning non-resistance, your inner life was probably characterized by a baseline of tension, worry, and struggle. You carried a constant low-level anxiety about all the things that could go wrong, all the problems you were facing, all the threats to your security and happiness. This is the normal human condition in a world that teaches resistance as the primary response to challenges. But as you practice non-resistance consistently, you notice your inner landscape changing. The constant tension begins to ease. The baseline anxiety dissolves. You find yourself experiencing long periods of genuine peace, where you are not worried about anything, not fighting with anything, simply present and content. This peace is not dependent on external circumstances being perfect. You experience it even when challenges are present, because you are no longer resisting those challenges. You have learned to remain centered and calm, regardless of what is happening around you. This inner peace is perhaps the greatest validation of all, because it is the thing every human being seeks at the deepest level. We want success, we want wealth, we want love, but what we really want is peace. And non-resistance gives you access to that peace directly, without having to wait for all your external circumstances to be perfect. The peace comes first, from your decision to stop resisting, and then the external circumstances begin to align with that peace. This is the reversal that Shinn taught. You do not get peace from having perfect circumstances. You get perfect circumstances from being at peace. We have journeyed together through the landscape of non-resistance, and now we stand at the place of integration, where all these principles come together into a unified understanding. Florence Scovel Shinn taught you that the battle you face is not truly yours. Every problem you encounter, every obstacle that stands in your path, every conflict that disturbs your peace, these are not your responsibility to solve through force. They belong to the law, to the infinite intelligence that governs the universe, to the power that created you and sustains you. Your responsibility is not to fight these battles. Your responsibility is to align yourself with the law and then step out of the way so the law can win the battle for you. This is the fundamental shift in understanding that separates those who struggle through life from those who flow through it with grace and power. The struggler believes everything depends on his personal effort, his willingness to fight, his capacity to force outcomes. He exhausts himself trying to control what cannot be controlled, and he wonders why life is so hard despite his tremendous effort. The master understands that his role is not to control, but to align. He does his part. He holds the vision, he takes inspired action, he maintains faith, and then he trusts the law to do what he cannot do, to orchestrate what he cannot orchestrate, to bring about results that exceed what his personal effort could ever achieve. Think of yourself as a general commanding an army of infinite power. This army is the law, and it is absolutely loyal to you, perfectly competent, never exhausted. It will fight any battle on your behalf, overcome any obstacle, achieve any objective you give it, but only if you give it the command and then get out of its way. What most people do is give the army an order, and then rush out onto the battlefield themselves, trying to fight alongside the army, getting in the way, creating confusion, blocking the very forces that are trying to help them. They cannot trust the army to do its job, so they interfere with frantic personal action driven by fear. And the army, being obedient, cannot work effectively when you are on the battlefield creating chaos. But when you give the order, when you clearly state your intention, when you bless the situation and release it to the law, and then stand aside, the army moves with perfect coordination. Obstacles that seemed insurmountable crumble. Enemies that seemed invincible surrender. Victory comes swiftly and completely because the army of the law is working without interference. This is what Shinn meant when she taught that the battle belongs to the law. Your job is to set the intention and then practice non-resistance so the law can work. The moment you step onto the battlefield with resistance and fear, you interfere with the very help that is coming to you. The power of this understanding cannot be overstated. When you truly grasp that you do not have to solve every problem through personal force, when you realize that you can release impossible situations to the law and trust that they will be handled, you experience a liberation that is almost indescribable. The weight you have been carrying, the weight of thinking that everything depends on you, that you must have all the answers, that you must control all outcomes, that weight lifts. You breathe freely for perhaps the first time in your adult life. You still take action, but your action is inspired rather than desperate. You still face challenges, but you face them with calm confidence rather than anxious fear. You still have goals and desires, but you pursue them with joyful anticipation rather than grim determination. Life stops being a constant battle and becomes instead a dance, where you lead by setting the direction and the universe follows by bringing the circumstances that match your direction. This is what Shinn called living in the flow, and it is available to anyone who will practice non-resistance consistently enough to prove its power through personal experience. The ultimate message that Shinn left for anyone who would listen is a message of freedom. In one of her most powerful statements, she wrote, "There is no peace on earth for the man who resists, but he who is non-resistant is free." Consider the depth of this statement. Peace is not something you achieve by arranging all your external circumstances perfectly. You will never have perfect circumstances. Life is inherently unpredictable, constantly changing, full of challenges and surprises. If your peace depends on having perfect circumstances, you will never have peace. But if your peace comes from your internal state, from your decision to stop resisting what is, from your practice of blessing and releasing everything that would disturb you, then your peace becomes unshakable. It is no longer dependent on anything external. It is sourced from within, from your mastery of your own consciousness, from your alignment with the law. This is true freedom, the freedom to be at peace regardless of what is happening around you, the freedom to remain centered and powerful even when circumstances are challenging, the freedom to know that you can handle anything because you have the technology of non-resistance. Most people live their entire lives as prisoners of circumstances, believing that they will be happy when this happens, or peace will come when that is resolved. They are always waiting for the external world to change before they can feel good internally. But the external world is a reflection of the internal world, so waiting for external change before internal change is backward. It locks you in a cycle where nothing ever truly improves because you are always reacting to circumstances rather than creating them. Shinn teaches you to reverse this. Change internally first, and watch the external world rearrange itself to match your new internal state. Stop resisting and watch your problems dissolve. Bless your obstacles and watch them transform into stepping stones. Stand still in faith and watch unexpected solutions appear. This is not wishful thinking. This is practical application of spiritual law. And when you do this consistently, when you prove to yourself through direct experience that it works, you become free. Free from the tyranny of circumstances. Free from the endless struggle against what is. Free to live with grace, power, and peace, regardless of what challenges life presents. The freedom Shinn speaks of is also freedom from the opinions and actions of others. When you are in resistance, you are controlled by whatever you resist. If you resist what someone said about you, their words control your emotional state. If you resist how someone treated you, Their actions determine your peace. If you resist the fact that someone does not like you or approve of you, their disapproval becomes your prison. But when you practice non-resistance, you become sovereign. What others say or do cannot disturb your peace because you refuse to resist it. You hear criticism, you acknowledge it, you consider if there is truth worth learning from, and then you release it. You do not fight it, you do not take it personally, you do not let it disturb your center. Someone treats you poorly, you observe it, you handle it appropriately if action is required, but you do not allow their behavior to create resentment or fear in you. You bless them and release them. This does not make you a doormat, it makes you powerful. You are choosing your responses instead of being controlled by stimuli. You are maintaining your peace instead of handing your peace over to anyone who wants to disturb it. This is the ultimate freedom, sovereignty over your own internal state, the ability to remain centered and calm no matter what chaos surrounds you. Florence Scovel. Shinn's teaching points to a profound truth about the nature of power. Real power is not the ability to dominate others or force circumstances. Real power is the ability to remain non-resistant, to maintain faith, to stay centered in peace while the storm rages around you. It is the power to bless what others curse, to release what others cling to trust when others panic. This power is available to everyone, but few develop it because it requires a complete reversal of how you have been taught to think. You have been taught that power comes from force, from control, from the ability to make things happen through effort, but Shinn teaches that true power comes from release, from trust, from the wisdom to know when to act and when to stand still. This is the power of the spiritual master, and it is within your reach. It does not require special gifts or years of meditation in a monastery. It requires only the willingness to practice non-resistance consistently, to prove its power through your own experience, and to choose peace over struggle even when every instinct tells you to fight. We arrive now at the moment of choice, because everything you have learned will remain mere theory unless you take action to implement it. You have been given a method, a technology, a shortcut for dissolving obstacles and transforming your life. You know now that fighting your problems is the slowest and least effective approach. You understand that blessing and releasing creates the space for miraculous resolution. You have seen the evidence that what you resist persists, and what you release transforms. The question now is not whether these principles work. They do, and they work as reliably as any law of physics. The question is whether you will apply them. Will you continue to live the way you have always lived, meeting every obstacle with force, struggling against circumstances, exhausting yourself through resistance? Or will you try a different way, the way Shinn taught, the way of flowing like water around obstacles, of blessing what you used to curse, of standing still when you used to fight? I challenge you now. Drop your fists. Uncurl your hands. Stop trying to punch through every wall. Stop wasting your precious energy on resistance that accomplishes nothing except to make the wall thicker. Open your hands. Receive, trust, release. Let the water of non-resistance flow through you and around every obstacle in your path. Are you ready for the shortcut? Are you ready to discover that most of what you have been fighting did not need to be fought, that it would have dissolved on its own if you had simply stopped feeding it the energy of your resistance? Are you ready to experience the peace that Shinn promised, the peace that comes not from perfect circumstances, but from perfect release of resistance to imperfect circumstances? If you are ready, then you must act. You must begin today, right now, with the very next obstacle that presents itself in your awareness. When it appears, do not react as you always have. Pause, breathe, bless, release, stand still, trust the law, watch what happens. Write this down where you will see it daily. I dissolve all blocks through non-resistance. What I bless transforms. What I release is handled by the law. I am free. Better yet, share your commitment by writing in the comments below, I dissolve all blocks. Let that statement be your declaration of intent, your public commitment to practicing a new way. When you write those words, you are not just typing. You are making a covenant with yourself and with the law. You are saying that you will no longer be a victim of circumstances, no longer a slave to resistance, no longer exhausted from endless fighting. You are claiming your power as a conscious creator, who works with law rather than against it, who flows rather than forces, who wins through wisdom rather than through struggle. This is the path that Florence Scovel Shinn opened for you. This is the secret door that has always been there, waiting for you to stop trying to break it down and simply turn the handle through non-resistance. The door opens now. The path is clear. Will you walk it?